This is my 4th time filming this video, and if it doesn't work out, I'm literally going to cry. I have had every single interruption you can think of trying to film this video over the past 2 days, and I'm like at my breaking point finally with it. This is the best it's getting. Whatever we have right now, this is the best it's getting. Today, I'm talking about the 16 books I've read over February, March, and April of 2023. I'm gonna let you know what the books are about and my opinions on them. If I like something you didn't, we have different opinions, and if you like something I didn't, we have different opinions. It's okay. With everything being said, let's jump into the video and talk about the books. I have a solid few genres here to talk about, and we had some 5-star reads in here, so I'm excited. You can't see, but I have my stack of books like up to here on the table right now. Alright, going back to February. The first book I read in February was Hopeless by Colleen Hoover. I have barely been reading Colleen Hoover after I kind of like had my phase last spring and summer with her. Nothing against her, like I'm not jumping on a bandwagon of being a Koho hater. I think she has some actually really entertaining books, and some of them are 5 stars to me. I read this because everyone talked about it. This is about a girl named Sky. She's a senior in high school. She's kind of like good girl, and she meets this guy named Dean who is like kind of a bad boy, doesn't have a good reputation. Like all of the people Sky hangs around is like, don't go by him, like you don't want to be with him, he's not good company. And she kind of just keeps finding herself in these situations of like getting closer to him, and they keep like bumping into each other and having these like moments, and he kind of is a douchebag to everybody else but her. Every time she keeps like hanging out with him, she keeps just like having these flashbacks to her childhood that was very traumatic that she kind of just blocked out and forgot about, and she keeps having these little moments where things come back to her, or like things start like clicking in place, and she doesn't understand why she's now having these things make sense that she's like older. Like she's like 17 or 18 in the book. Like she's like, these things like never clicked when I was younger, why are they doing it now? There's a lot of things that he's hiding. There's a lot of secrets he has. There's a lot of just like suspicious things going on. She's trying to find out what he's hiding basically, and you just like go throughout this story. I will say check the triggers for this, because there is one really brutal topic that is talked about in this that I think a lot of people would find uncomfortable or triggering, so you might want to look into that. I gave this book 3 stars. I really liked the twists, I liked the story, but I just could care less about the characters. I don't know why, I just did not like the main character, and also the love interest was like kind of mid. I don't know, there was just nothing. Like they felt very one-dimensional, and as my standards have heightened for reading books, especially romances, the characters didn't have much personality. Next, I read If He Had Been With Me. So this is a sad romance, but I do want to emphasize the fact that there is a big chunk, in my opinion, of almost like literary fiction in this, because a lot of this is about the main character Autumn's like life and growing up, being a teenager, and like basic struggles of like dealing with like having a boyfriend, and like dealing with difficult people in friendships, and not feeling like you're fitting in. That is a big discussion in this book for like a big portion of this. You're kind of just almost following throughout her life, and it does have flashbacks to when she's young with the love interest Finn, so you see these little moments, and it's kind of friends to strangers. They like grew up together, and there was so much tension between them, and then they just like kind of dropped each other and like moved on and went in different directions. He's very like popular jock, and she's kind of like outcasted, like nerdy girl, I guess. It never works out. Like it never works out in their favor. And this is a sad book. There is sadness in this, so want to let you know, but I can't like say anything about it because I don't want to spoil anything. But all in all, I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars, and I would absolutely recommend. That book I've thought about multiple times since I've read it, and I actually really liked the characters. You're gonna hear about this series a lot in this video because I read all 5 books in the past 2 months. This is the first book in the like Me series. This is Come Back to Me by Mila Gray. So this entire series is like military marine based. So this is a brother's best friend trope, and the main love interest Kit, he comes back from serving in the Marines, and he just got like deployed, and he's back in like his hometown with his like best friend, and then he notices his best friend's sister, and like there's so much tension between them. Like they've grown up together kind of, but like there's like something different this time, and they both like feel it instantly. Like they honestly get together pretty quickly in this book, and you just see them like sneaking out, going on dates together, and having these cute moments. And I love, like, it felt like they had like an actual connection. Some of these books I read, I just feel like I'm like, oh, I feel like they're gonna break up like right after the book. Like it doesn't feel genuine, but this felt so genuine, and like the moments was so cute in this book. And there was some sadness in this book. I did cry reading it, but it was so good. It was so good. I loved like the Marine trope. I've never really read anything that was kind of army, Marine, military based, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. So this was a 5-star for me, and I would absolutely recommend this book. Then the next book I read was Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. This book is super popular, so I finally picked it up and I read it, and it's about a girl who's moving back to her hometown. She kind of just wants to get back on her feet. She needs like just some comfort. She's just kind of like going through things in her life, and she meets this guy named Archer who is mute, so he cannot speak, and he just kind of has a bad rep. Like, everyone doesn't really talk to him. They just think he's kind of outcasted and weird and whatever. And she knows sign language because I believe her dad was deaf, or uncle or something. So she starts having these small conversations when she would bump into him, because small town, forced proximity. They just found themselves together a lot, and then she started seeing like this side of him that like no one sees because he's so closed off to everyone. And then he kind of starts helping her with like everything she's going through and why she came home and whatever, and you just see like this romance develop or whatever. I actually enjoyed like a good portion of this book, but some of the miscommunication in this book like bugs me so much that it literally got bumped down to 3 stars. Like, I was like gonna give this a 4-star. It wasn't a 5-star, but I was gonna give it a 4-star, and then the miscommunication toward the end of the book pissed me off so much. I was like, this is 3 stars for me. And they do this trope a lot in books, and I realized like I really hate it. They always do it toward the end of a book, and like this just like took way too long. I hate when things just get like dragged on for too long. Like, this book could have been a little bit shorter in my opinion. Then we read Stay With Me. This is the second book in like, I don't know if it's called the Me series. That's just what I call it, I guess, the Come Back to Me series. This is about a girl who starts working in like this medical center for wounded Marines that just came home, and they're like recovering and dealing with things or whatever. So she's working there, and her dad is the boss. And she meets this guy named Walker. Also, just to mention, this is about Dee Dee, and Dee Dee is Jessa's best friend from the first book, so you instantly feel connected to her, so I absolutely loved that. And she starts caring for this guy named Walker, who is blind because of something that happened traumatically while he was serving. So she's just keeps finding herself like having these moments with him, and like he keeps thinking like, is this like just her being friendly? Is there something here? And she keeps thinking like the same. So there's like forced proximity, angst, and like you just was like, come on, get together. And I love it. I loved everything about this. I loved the tropes. And this just felt very genuine too. Like, I actually feel like these people would get married if they were real people. Like, it didn't feel cheesy or it didn't feel shallow at all, and I loved that. So this was really good. I honestly find the first 2 books so comparable. Like, they're so closely, I don't know which one I like better. Like, 5 stars for both of them. Love the love interests, love the heroines, so good. I like the storyline in both of them, and again with the Marines thing, so entertaining. Okay, I'm gonna put these 2 together to save a little bit of time, but I read Run Away With Me and Watch Over Me, which is the 3rd and 4th book in this series. This book is about Emerson and Jake, and basically they were childhood friends, and they started developing a relationship as they aged, and then something terrible happens like right as they're getting into a relationship together, and like things start progressing. So they like drop contact, don't talk to each other anymore. Jake moves away, and that's just kind of the end of it, and they both are just like very scarred from the situation. And he ends up coming back for the summer to work in her family's canoeing shop, I believe, and you see them like slowly start uncovering the past. You start learning about like why he like abruptly left and why their like whole thing just like absolutely plummeted. And I really liked this romance too. I did find it entertaining. The only sad thing I didn't like about this book was this did not have really much of anything to do with like Marines, military, anything like that. And these characters do not go into the rest of the series. Like, as the 4th and 5th book go on, people from the other books get mentioned, or they're like starting a friend group or whatever. Like, by the 5th book, it's like found family with most of all the characters, but these 2 were never brought up. Then we have Watch Over Me, and this is... Okay, so Tristan is on the Coast Guard, and his best friend, Will, is, I believe, going to serve or going somewhere, and he's like, please watch over my sister Zoe, like please just make sure she's okay, because there's this huge situation going on where her safety is kind of at jeopardy a little bit. So he just starts kind of like talking to her, whatever. They kind of know each other because her brother's best friends with him, and they start forming this connection, but there's like this big drama and dangerous situation going on along all of this. And then he's like a Coast Guard, so he has like kind of an interesting job going on, and again, like the brother's best friend trope, but this is done in like a different way. This book was a 3.5 star for me. This was the one I liked the least for some reason, just because I felt like it started dragging on for a while. Like, there was a big plot in it, but for some reason when I was reading it, I just started getting uninterested like 2/3 in, and I was like, okay, like let's wrap this up here. Next, I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. This was the last Emily Henry book I had to read until now. Her new book just came out. I can't think of what it's called right now. So this is about Alex and Poppy, and they're kind of college friends, whatever, and then something happens where they just kind of like don't talk for a while. And then they make this plan to go on this vacation together. So you just see them like start getting closer, and this like tension and the banter in any Emily Henry book is bound to be incredible. Like, if I could find someone that banters with me this much, like I would literally be like, marry me right now. And I loved their chemistry. I loved everything about this. I love how Emily Henry almost has like a lot of literary fiction in all of her books, because it just makes you feel, again, just like the character is not one-dimensional. Like, they always have like a good career going on. They always have like other friends or family issues or whatever. Like, it feels like they're a real person. It doesn't just feel like, oh, I exist to like only find my love interest. Love it. This book was 4.5 star for me. It was close to 5 stars, but I believe I gave Beach Read 5 stars, and I think I liked that just slightly better. Okay, next I read, this is a little bit of a switch up. I read Malibu Rising. This was where my romance phase, I was like, I need a second, because literally I was just straight up reading romance for like a month plus. And I've been wanting to read this for a long time, and any Taylor Jenkins Reid book is like going to be good. Like, I genuinely don't think this woman knows how to write a bad piece of literature. So this has a really interesting premise. This is about like a famous family in Hollywood and like her made up world. If you read any Taylor Jenkins Reid book, most of the time characters kind of cross over into different books. This is about Mick Riva's family and just the entire Riva family. And Mick Riva was mentioned in Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and you didn't really like him in Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Spoiler. Like, no one liked him, and it brings it into this book. Like, you still don't like this guy. But I feel like the main character in this is Nina, but it also just kind of bases around the whole family. But Nina's the oldest daughter of the Rivas, and you're going along with her story and her being this famous surfer and how her family's in the public eye or whatever, and then it also dives back into like how her parents met. So you're just learning about this family, and every year they have this like annual party in Malibu at their house with a ton of famous people, and you know, everyone in the public eye. It's very cliquey, it's very drama orientated. Like, people do things just to get like the news called on them, so they get in like the papers and have attention. Like, it's, you just learn a lot about like Hollywood and all these tactics people use, and the family's just really messed up. Like, you learn a lot about the family. There's a lot of family drama going on, but then there's like relationship drama going on, and then there's also all the Hollywood things. So it's a very interesting book. It is literary fiction, but which sounds like so boring, I know. But I promise you, any Taylor Jenkins Reid book is so good. This was easily 5 stars for me. Next book I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. So this book has a very interesting premise. Like, all of his books feel very different. So the Holt family moved into this really strange house that people had died in. There was rumors of ghost stories. They moved in here 25 years prior to present day, right? So their daughter Maggie is very young at this point, and it's just the husband and wife, and they're staying in this house, and they just start having these really weird things start happening. Like, the husband keeps waking up at like this exact time every night to these noises going on, and they keep seeing things throughout this story, and just really strange things are happening. Neighbors are strange. Like, he starts diving into this and becomes almost like enthralled with learning about this. Like, that becomes his entire premise of his days, because he's so obsessed with like what is going on. Like, I feel like I'm losing my mind in this house. As you read throughout the story, this big thing happens that causes the family to like flee the house, like whatever. And that's throughout the entire book. But then it also jumps to the perspective of Maggie, the daughter, 25 years in the future, going back to remodel this house because she does like home interior or whatever, and she wants to start like learning about why her family left and like what was so weird about this house. So you're getting her perspective 25 years in the future, and then her dad's 25 years in the past of like what he went through and now what she's going through. They do a really good job of manipulating you and like masking things to make you feel like you have no idea what's going on. Like there's a lot of little things that get thrown at you in Riley Sager books that just like throw you off your track. This was a 4.5 for me. I almost gave this book 5 stars. This is gonna be really brief. I reread The Love Hypothesis. I've talked about this book in the past. This is my favorite rom-com book. It's the first rom-com I ever read. So I wanted to go back like a year or so later and reread it and see if it still had like the hype in my head that I made it to have, and absolutely 5 stars again. She always talks about people in STEM, which I love reading about smart people. And her tropes and storylines are so entertaining. Then I read Family of Liars. This is the second book in like the We Were Liars. I don't know if it's just a duology or they're making it a series or not, but I was curious to pick this up and I was on vacation and this book feels very vacation to me. So picked it up. This is about the same families on the same island, but there's different characters in this. And all I'm gonna say about it is it's another like mystery with a little bit of romance in it. Compared to the first book, I like how much she explained the scenery in the first book. I felt very there on the island. It felt very nautical. It felt very beachy. I loved the scenery that she explained. I feel like she did not the best job like explaining the circumstances and just the feel of what was going on around. It was much more just character involved the entire time. And I did like the characters in this book better. I found the characters more entertaining, which I'm glad that she focused more on them, I guess, in this book than the other book, but I wish there was more discussion about the beach vibe. It was a 3-star for me. It was entertaining. I would compare it to the first book. I feel like they're both pretty comparable and they kind of had similar feels. You guys were on the last stint of the 4 books. Like, I'm trying to get through these and explain them well and not like go on rambling, but I need to give enough information. Next book, which is the final book in like the Me series, which was Fall Into Me. And this book is about Will. Will went off to serve and wanted Tristan to watch over his sister Zoe, right? Well, now he's back. He's back from the Marines. And he is looking for a job and he's kind of just struggling with getting back and everything he went through, and he's kind of in like the perfect place at the perfect time looking for a job, and this lady overhears him and she's like, you need to like be a bodyguard, you need to like watch over my daughter because she's in the public eye and she's getting these death threats all the time and we don't know what to do about it, and all of our bodyguards have like quit or been fired and we don't like know what to do. So she's like, you cannot fall for her, like you cannot be involved with her, like just, you know, do your job and go home. And he's very work oriented. He's definitely a workhorse. So he's like, that's like no issue for me, like whatever. Meets this girl, absolutely beautiful. Her name's Luna and she's like a singer, and I don't know if she's a model, but he just like stays on task, stays on the job, like starts realizing how much like threats she's getting and how weird of a situation this is. So it's bodyguard trope and forced proximity, and like she is so closed off. She absolutely hates everyone. She thinks everyone is using her, and she really struggles. Like she's really struggling with like insecurities and feeling worthy enough, and she kind of just has like really crappy people in her life. Like her like mom sucks. She just feels like she has no freedom, and he just like starts like talking to her over time, and they start opening up to each other, and he's just like, you like, it's your life, like you can do what you want. And it's so cute watching them start to have this bond because they're both closed off people, and then they start like opening up to each other. I did give this book 4 stars because I think the first 2 just like hit so different compared to the rest of them, I guess, but this was really good too, and I liked both the characters and I loved the bodyguard trope. Just to quickly mention, there is like found family in this because besides the 3rd book, all of the characters from the past few books are in this book together. Like toward the end of the book, you like see them all like being friends and they're all like having a good time at like this gathering together, and it is so cute like watching all the people that you like are just in love with from this series and feel so connected to like all together. It's just adorable. Okay, then I read Imposters. This is a dystopian YA book. This is about a girl who, let me just read the back because it's kind of confusing. Okay, so Frey is Rafi's twin sister and her body double. While Rafi was raised to be the perfect daughter, Frey has been taught to kill. Her only purpose is to protect her sister and to sacrifice herself if she must. Okay, then when her father sends Frey in Rafi's place as collateral in a precarious deal, she becomes the perfect imposter. but Cole, the son of a rival leader, is getting close enough to spot the killer inside her. Can Frey trust him with the truth and risk becoming her own person? So there is a little subplot of romance in this, and I love the action. I love the dystopian vibe. It felt very divergent, and almost the way this formatting is like set up feels like Shatter Me. You can consider it. I like the character, and I did like the like forbidden subplot of romance, so. And that's the first book. I believe there is a series, so I'm gonna have to look for the second book, but I was like shockingly entertained by that. We read Twisted Love next. This is Brother's Best Friend again. I've been reading a lot of this like recently, and I picked this up like on a whim. I've heard a lot of people talk about this series, so I was like, I'll read the first one, see what's up. I don't know how to explain this book to you. It's like brother's best friend, and her brother is going off somewhere, so he makes like this deal with the best friend, kind of how a lot of these set up, and is like, please protect like my sister because she's like a party animal. She's kind of reckless, like she doesn't know what she's doing. Alex, the love interest, he starts like watching over Ava and realizing like all of the stuff she does is just like so like reckless and crazy, and he just gets like so frustrated with her. And then he's like a businessman and she's kind of in college, so he's very like pays for everything, like drives to like these parties or wherever she's at and is just like get in the car. Like he's very yeah, he's like that. And you just like continue throughout the story, and there's like more to the plot than just like a light romance. There is like some heavier things going on in this. And I actually cried in this book. I was frustrated in this book. Like there was a lot of emotions going on. You might want to check the triggers for this, and then there is some spice in this, so I gave it 4 stars, but I was really entertained by this book. I just picked up Twisted Games, which is the second one. Okay, you guys, the last book I read was Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I love Alice Feeney, and I was like, I need to read more from her because I read Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I felt like that was just a really smart, well thought out book. So I picked this up, and it's a thriller, and I'll just read you the basic description. My name is Amber Reynolds. There are 3 things you should know about me. 1, I'm in a coma. 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. And 3, sometimes I lie. So you just need to read this. You need to read this because this book is such like a mind frick. I kid you not. It manipulates you and makes you believe so many things. The twist in this book was so good. So this was a 4.5 for me, and you should definitely read this because it's worth the hype, and it's only like 260 pages, so it's not a very long thriller. I am gonna tell you, look at the trigger warnings for this. There was like a really brutal scene in this, and it's a very dark book. Like, I'm not gonna lie, after I read this, I was like, holy cow, I'm gonna have to like read something a little uplifting because this was a rough book. It's very somber and dark, and her mental state is just rough throughout this entire book. Thank you guys for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and I want to know what you guys have been reading, so let me know in the comments below, or if you have any book recs. I will see you guys all next time. I love you very much.